What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here, and I want to talk to you about an X-Men book that I recently read. New X-Men, Academy X, Volume 1, Choosing Sides. This collects the first 6 issues of New X-Men Academy X. This series started right around the same time when Marvel was doing a soft revival, soft relaunch of all of their X-Men titles. They ended Extreme X-Men and they ended New Mutants around this time. They had a new creative team on pretty much all of the X-Men books. Chris Claremont went from Extreme X-Men to Uncanny X-Men. Peter Milligan started his run on Adjectiveless X-Men. Astonishing X-Men started at this time, and then also New X-Men started at this time. And this is basically Volume 3 of the New Mutant series that was by Christina Weir and Nunzio De Flippis, the husband-wife team that was writing New Mutants at the time. And that series only lasted about 13 issues, and it's very clear that this is what they intended to do with New Mutants, and then Marvel was like, hey, we're kind of shuffling the X-Men books a little bit, so we're just going to let you guys keep doing what you're doing on this New Mutants title, but we're going to end it and start over with a brand new number 1. Because one of the letters pages in the last 6 issues of that run, which unfortunately hasn't been collected in trade, the last half of their New Mutants run, one of the letters pages, they mentioned something about be sure to check out issue 14, which is going to be the start of a new storyline called Choosing Sides. And there never was an issue 14. The last issue of that series was issue 13, and then the first issue of this series was the first part of Choosing Sides. So very clearly, this wasn't so much editorial mandate forcing them to do something. Pretty much all of their plans that they had for that series that never went on or never kept going just carried over into this new series. And with that series, they basically did the exact opposite of what most superhero teams, especially in the 90s, you used to see this in the 90s a lot, where you would have a brand new superhero team like the Wild Force or something like that, and then you'll have all these characters like Dark Mace and Silver Dagger and all these different characters, and it's like, that's a really cool superhero name, and they've got really cool powers, but then you would see very little actual characterization and personality in those characters, and a lot of times, I would wager, that's why those books ended up failing, because they didn't have a whole lot of humanity in them. It was just all the really cool stuff that you like seeing in comic books, but it's not the meat of a superhero comic book. And the New Mutant series, it was the exact opposite, where you didn't have any superhero names or any secret identities or anything like that. It was all about the human characters, and they did have superpowers, and a lot of those superpowers were really unique and interesting, but they tried more to develop these characters as characters and kind of establish some of their relationships with each other before starting up a new superhero series. And this book is really where we take those established characters and then throw them into kind of sort of a new status quo. Where the first 13 issues was establishing them, this takes those characters that have already been established and puts them into the world of Harry Potter, basically. This book even mentions Harry Potter at one point. It says, you've got a hedge maze on the school grounds, and Noriko Surge, she's right there in the middle of the book. She says, oh, so what is this, Harry Potter? And then throughout the course of this book, the entire student body is put into different squads so that they can do different team-building exercises throughout the semester. And Cyclops says this is meant to build small unit tactical learning or something like that. And he says this isn't meant to turn you guys into gangs to fight each other. But obviously that was what was going to happen, because these characters who become the New Mutants team, that's their squad name, they very much hate the Hellions, that's Emma Frost's team, and vice versa. The Hellions really hate the New Mutants. And so Cyclops says, this wasn't meant to turn you guys against each other. Well, Cyclops, you idiot, what did you think was going to happen? But anyway, this storyline is called Choosing Sides, and basically you've got the New Mutants team and the Hellions team set up early on in this arc, but then over the course of this storyline, Kevin Ford, who ran away from the school during the events of the New Mutant series, he comes back, and then the FBI come and say, hey, listen, Kevin Ford's father died, and we need to arrest Kevin because he's the one who killed his father. And it's kind of one of those situations where you've got good guys and good guys who very much disagree with each other based on some sort of moral dilemma, kind of like Civil War or X-Men Schism. It's kind of like that, where you've got some people who say Kevin shouldn't be arrested because it was an accident when his father died. And other people say, yes, it was an accident, but that's not our decision to make. And if we hide him in the school, if we say, no, you can't arrest him because it was an accident, then you're saying that mutants are above the law. And it's one of those situations where both sides have very valid points. And then throughout this book, these two groups, the New Mutants and the Hellions, kind of come to blows over this moral dilemma, where the Hellions think that Kevin should not be arrested, and they're going to go and fight the FBI to try and rescue him. And then most of the New Mutants are like, no, you're not going to do that, because then you're going to make things much worse for us in the school. if you do that. And it's a very interesting way to kind of shuffle the teams a little bit. So you've got characters on both sides who switch teams by the end of this storyline, because it's like, you know what, I realize this team that you put me with, they're not really my friends. I'm much more friendly with these other guys. And also, this is kind of, you get to see a little bit of the start of Kevin Ford's character arc. A little bit of spoilers for comic books that I haven't reviewed yet, but later on in the comics by Craig Kyle and Chris Yost, in New X-Men, when they were writing this title, and then also later on still in their X-Force run, Wither, Kevin Ford, he kind of became, well, he did become, no kind of about it, he became much more of a supervillain, and you can definitely see that start happening here, where he's kind of befriending Emma Frost, and at first you're thinking, okay, Emma Frost, she doesn't really care if Wither is on her squad or Danny's squad, although she's being very catty throughout this whole book. This book will definitely, if you're already on the fence about Emma Frost, this book will make you hate Emma Frost. I hate her in this book. She's just the worst person in the world, but she's like, okay, you know, you should come to the school, even though Danny is a terrible person, you should still come. And it's like, yeah, on the one hand, she did get him back to the school, but on the other hand, within a year of comic book time, Kevin Ford was a supervillain. So, Emma Frost, did you really do any good here, or were you just putting him on the path to becoming a supervillain? I'll leave that up for you guys to decide. This book, it's very blatantly ripping off Harry Potter. It's a lot like, you got the New Mutants, they're kind of like the Gryffindor team, and then you've got the Hellions, they're kind of like Slytherin, and then you've got Emma Frost is kind of like Snape, etc. It's very much, very similar to Harry Potter. But if you love these characters, if you like these characters from the New Mutants series, then you're going to like this book. A lot of people complained that this series wasn't enough superhero action, and I would say that's kind of true. There's not a whole lot of fighting supervillains and stuff like that, but then again, does it really make a lot of sense for these teenagers to be out there fighting supervillains? Not really. These guys are students first, and they have powers, but they are not out there patrolling and trying to use their powers to save the world. It's mostly in a situation like this, where they are students at a school, you're going to see them use their powers in situations that are kind of unavoidable. Like here, where half of the student body, or half of the student body that's actually featured in the series, they go off and they're going to go fight the FBI, and then the New Mutants say, we got to stop them, it's an emergency, but they're not going out there trying to fight supervillains. And so, personally, for me, I really like this series, and I feel like even though there's not a whole lot of superhero action, which a lot of people really wanted when this series was going on, there is a lot of really good character stuff going on here, which is more important to me than having a heavy action series or action scene in your series. So even though, yes, that is a complaint people have leveled against this series, I don't think it's necessarily a very valid complaint. So even though this is very much riffing on Harry Potter a little bit, I didn't mind that too much here or when I was reading this series the first time. So I really enjoyed this volume of New X-Men Academy X. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you are interested in reading this series, I would recommend that you check out this volume. And I will be reviewing the next few volumes of this series. There's 2 more volumes of the main series, and then there was a short spin-off featuring the Hellions, and I'll be covering those over the next few weeks. So look forward to those, and I'll be doing other videos throughout the week, so be sure to check those out as well. In the meantime, I will see you guys in the future. Have a great rest of the day.